And the second most important one is resilience and persistency in not giving up. We knew commerce. We had the benefits of working with some of the best teams at that time and products for a decade already. So, and hundreds of customers. So we said, okay, we know all the features in and out. We don't, so even the specs we could write sleeping on what is functionality of a commerce platform, how it has to look like. But if we start with that, we had been afraid we fall back into old patterns and that we get, oh yeah, in the past this worked, so we will do it like that again, but just with ABC on top. And this was something that we had been fearing the most, that we rebuild what was already there and just try to make it 10% better. Our approach was, let's make something that's 10x different than anything else that hasn't been out there from the architecture, to really solve the problem. So what this means is that as a business, you have to make really carefully gross margin analysis across your customer tiers and buckets to really understand where are you making money and where are you losing money. And you will always have this one or two customers where you're not having a good gross margin. And this is okay if you know about it and if you accept it and if you model that in, because you also, on the other end, often get some customers where you have an amazing gross margin because they make with you a lot of revenue, but they don't have a comparably same infrastructure cost as similar sized customers. But this needs to be balanced out.
Welcome. This is Second Acts, a podcast where we document how SaaS leaders chart the exacting foundational shifts of scaling up. And I'm your host, Krish Subramanian, co-founder and CEO at ChargeBee. This season, we are diving into AI's all-out enterprise embrace and how that's accelerating the need for second acts, reshaping segments and verticals, redefining business models, and reorganizing teams to meet never-before-seen stakes. Now, on to the episode. More than a decade ago, this episode's guest, Dirk Hoerig, foresaw what Wired magazine would later call the death of the web. A shift away from a desktop-first world towards a more fragmented, multi-device future, where apps, APIs, and new interfaces would mediate nearly every digital interaction. Dirk also coined the term headless commerce to name a clear break from the monolithic retail software giants of the day. And he founded commercetools around a fundamentally different way of architecting enterprise software, API first, cloud native, and built for unknowable change. That early insight positioned commercetools to adapt across multiple platform shifts, from mobile to voice to now agentic commerce, while serving massive enterprise customers like Sephora, Woolworths, and Audi, and scaling a multi-$100 million ARR business in the process. In this conversation, we talk about why architectural decisions made in 2010 have turned out to be oddly perfect for agentic commerce workflows, a step-by-step snapshot of how they launched a Commerce MCP, how they think about monetizing enterprise value across widely different industries and business models, how disciplined margin analysis guides their pricing strategy across customer tiers. Dirk's move to the Chief Innovation Officer role after 14 years as CEO, what it says about how they consistently review their operating model and where they are headed in an AI-native future, and a whole lot more. Let's dive in. All right. Dirk, it's a pleasure to have you with us. You have built a category-defining company, and not just that, you have helped define the category itself. Headless, composable, Mac, and commercetools didn't just ride the wave, it named it. So from launching at the intersection of cloud and mobile to stepping into a new role after a 14-year founder run, right? Your journey mirrors the evolution of digital commerce to some degree through our lens. And so there is a lot I want to unpack, from category playbooks and monetization to how you are thinking about the next wave. So I want to rewind a little bit for a second. So let's start with from the beginning, right? You said it takes 10 years to build $100 million software company. And the good news is it only takes 10 years, right? So looking back at the early days before headless commerce was even a term, what was a belief that you held that felt obvious to you, but was not obvious to the market yet?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show here, Krish. Back at that time, we saw a few things on the market changing. As you already mentioned, cloud technology had been growing and became mature, also to an enterprise level on scalability and security. And the smartphone adoption had been growing significantly. And back in 2010, we saw that the e-commerce market, which had been growing tremendously over the last 15 years, with Amazon being the front runner of business models and innovation for many out there, this was all desktop focused, and it was all on-prem. And it was following, to a certain extent, 25-year-old, 30-year-old business models on how you sell and manage and maintain enterprise software. And then suddenly the market was shifting, and we believed or asked ourselves, is what we built for the past good enough for the problems that our customers will have in the future? Because they suddenly got from a one touchpoint world, so the desktop, maybe there was multi-channel, was online and offline, so you had a website and you had a store, that had been the two kind of things, into a multi-device world with a digitally enabled consumer. And how will the world change? And secondly is, if we can build software differently through cloud technologies, would we solve some of the problems that in the past enterprise software made money with? Because the majority of the money was never the license that somebody sold. So if IBM sold you a license for $1 million, basically what they planned for was selling you 10 million of upgrade services over the decade following. And that was where they made the mature part of the money. But as a customer, there's not much value in it, because you have to pay a lot of money for just being on the latest version and for maintenance and so on, and not on innovation. So what shifted for us was, okay, how will this market look like? And would we build the same products again if we believe that this is a future? And what was a game changer for us, and I haven't actually said this in podcast quite often, there was, and we can maybe link it to the episode, in 2010, I think it was, end of 2009, beginning 2010, when we already had the idea in mind of what commercetools is today. I'd been in the US for a business trip, and there was a Wired magazine. So Wired is a leading tech magazine, at least in that time. And the cover on that issue was "The web is dead." I still have a couple of somewhere here in the office as a memory. And when you flipped it, the page, "Long live the internet." And it was basically the whole magazine was about how consumer behavior is going to shift when we think on internet business models and not web shop desktop business models. And today we see, so WhatsApp, Instagram, Airbnb, I don't know, Booking. So almost all of the business models that are leading companies these days from a technology perspective are mobile first, or at least in parallel to other touch points. They are not second. And that was the belief, as you asked me about, what we saw coming or expected to come is a world where mobile and other touch points will be dominating, or at least competing on a high level, and the consumer is not differentiating anymore. So we all expect information to flow simultaneously across all of these devices, no matter if online or offline, being perfectly integrated. And what does this mean for commerce? And that was basically then the cornerstone that we built commercetools around, that belief that, hey, if this market is going to come somewhere into that direction, we need to have commerce operating systems. We don't need web shop solutions. And until then, everybody built web shop solutions because that was the only way where you sold.
Beautiful. And today, how do you describe commercetools as a product, as a differentiation?
Yeah, so quite simple, right? So we're a commerce platform provider that helps your business to enable e-commerce across all touch points in a unified way. No matter if you want to sell on the desktop, if you want to sell on the smartphone, if you're a car manufacturer and you want to sell on the car, if you want to connect it with your store, and these days, if you want to connect it to agentic shopping, so if the AI is your buyer, we provide you one platform that enables all touch points holistically for your business and gives you the opportunity to have the best experiences on each touch point with one underlying platform. So you basically have one platform to run your business across all touch points at the highest level of experience.
Beautiful. And what, if I may ask, right, you deliberately focused on a certain segment of market. Can you talk a little bit about it and why you made some of those choices?
Yeah, so we focus on the enterprise market. So enterprise means we're focusing on larger customers. I know there's different definitions out there of enterprise, and many companies like to use that term. One way how you could segment that is that you look at online revenue. So we are addressing companies that are far above 100 million online revenue, ideally even 250, 300 million above. There are exceptions. Our platform also can work for significantly smaller businesses. So the revenue is not a threshold or limitation. It's more one KPI to define what enterprise means. In a little bit more longer definition, enterprise for us is a look on the complexity of their business model. So if you're selling in many countries, if you have a large product catalog, so tens of thousands of products or even millions, you have to sell in multiple regions in multiple languages, often in different sub-catalogs of products, because not all of the products are always sold in the same way or same time in all of the countries. If you have B2C, B2B business, so selling to consumers, selling to businesses, maybe different brands around it, multiple logistics centers, and so on. So if you're at that kind of scale, then companies often run into a lot of issues these days. They got slow on innovation because the legacy software that they had been growing their businesses with could not hold up with the innovation that the internet had been driving. So they are not able to release new features, to adapt the experience, to think about new business models, and to give some examples for the listeners, right? So this can be no-brainers. For example, in COVID in 2020, when stores had to close, a lot of brands wanted to ship from their store because they had inventory in the stores. Nobody could come to the stores anymore. They had to shut it down. Making these small stores shipping centers took for many of them 1 to 2 years, where you wonder, okay, why does it take you even a week? The issue is that the software that had been running the store wasn't built for an e-commerce environment where they then can also send parcels, book out inventory, drive online orders, or those kind of things. Today we talk about BOPIS and BORIS, so by online pickup in store or return in store. So those kind of things started to significantly grow from the COVID times, though many companies could not adapt. And they did not adapt because they did not know what to do. It was technology that had been holding them back. And it's those kind of, when we talk about flexibility, what do we mean is getting things done that the marketing team needs to hit their revenue numbers or ideally even grow them. That's the kind of thing. And a good example here, and that's what we build commerce tools for, that are often used here to explain. A couple of years back, Best Buy, one of the largest US online shopping sites for electronics, they wanted to move the add to cart button a few pixels over to the right. And we talk here about a company that makes billions online in revenue already that time, that has a lot of resources, a lot of people, a lot of knowledge. And it took them 9 months just to move the add to cart button over. And it involved 60 people full-time, cost them over $1 million. This is all publicly documented for those who want to learn more about the issue here. And it wasn't that they hadn't been smart and they didn't do changes and so on, or could not do them. actually the opposite. Best Buy ran into the problem that they grew on a legacy platform for 15 years, and they made changes all the time until it became unmanageable. Because the software back in the early 2000s hadn't been designed that you make a lot of changes on the run. It had been designed that you roll it out, it runs on the desktop, then you keep it running, and at some point you replace it. So with all of their engineers, they made changes until it became unmanageable. They created Frankenstein's monster, and nobody could make a change anymore. They had 250 different versions of the product detail page. The database became too big to have a testing environment. The front end and the back end functionality, so user experience and functionality, had been interwoven. So if you made a change somewhere, you hadn't been sure, okay, is our card still working because I touched something here on the product page? All of these kind of things made it unmanageable. And these 9 months, and that's not even the problem. The problem is that Amazon, the biggest competitor, made a change every second. So it took them 9 months just to move the buy button a little bit on the product detail page, which is a simple change. Normally you would say, okay, we get this done within the next hour or something like that. And this is unfortunately the reality in most enterprises. If you commerce applications, if you look into the backlog of the marketing team, it's often 200 items long, 2 years dated, because they can't move anymore at the speed that they wanted. And this is because they still run on technology that came from the pre-mobile world, from the pre-cloud world. That's today is labeled cloud, right? So everybody has their Commerce Cloud product, but behind that fancy little label is an on-prem, dedicated, hosted, 25-year-old legacy stack that is hard to customize and to maintain. That takes you a lot of people, that costs you a lot of money. And at the end, you end up spending 70%, 80% of your IT budget in maintenance and not on innovation. And this is where we then evolved and helped our customers to overcome that barrier, right? So at the end, it's just about being innovative, being fast, being agile, and that for the enterprise. And you ask me about what's a segment. Enterprise customers have much more need for these flexibility and customization than smaller businesses. Therefore, we have the exception. Smaller business can use our platform as well. But if your challenge as a business owner is, hey, the internet sounds cool, I want to sell something online, how can I do this? Or your challenge is, hey, we're doing 300, 400 million online, we want to grow to 1 billion, but technology is holding us back, then you're both operating in the internet, but it's complete different challenges. And we optimized our company and the products on solving the second. Yes, we could also help the first one, but for the first one, there are also good small alternatives that are just helping you setting up a shopping site, and that's it.
Beautiful. I think you beautifully articulated what is not seen as a visible problem, as what goes on behind some of these companies, to bring out the value that you could actually articulating the problem and connecting that to the potential that is there with the technical solution that's actually much more modern, and it takes them forward. And I want to connect that to delivering value to capturing value, right? One of the customers, I think you had mentioned this earlier in one of your quotes, which is John Lewis, one of your largest UK customers, went from making 2 changes a year to 5,000 to 10,000 changes a year after adopting commerce tools. So it's not just scale, right? That's adaptability. And so I want to ask how you think about monetizing that level of enterprise value across industries like telecom, automotive, right? And across functions from IT to finance, because your product cuts across all of this. How do you think about monetization?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. And so first, the credits to John Lewis and the team. Amazing team. I think there is on YouTube a great session where John Lewis is talking at one of our conferences on stage about their journey to modernizing their e-commerce platform and how that went. And this is also where they mention on how many updates they are now doing. And we started to tell them, please say less in public, because the number is so high that nobody believes you. Just say you do 200 updates a year, right? So don't use the word 1,000. This is what we started to tell them, which is, so they do more than 1,000 updates, but it's just unbelievably high, and they fully embraced the advantages of a modern cloud-native architecture to bring the velocity to their team. On the monetization side, my experience on building companies and business models is that you have to monetize around what your buyers understand and what's driving value for your business. So you can have a great product that has a lot of customer demands. If your pricing isn't matching what the customer perceives as value driver, and you don't have clear KPIs that they are also able to track, then it will be challenging for you as a business to grow, because you always have multiple buyers. Right? So there's a tech team that's doing the tech evaluation. There's then the business team that's looking into the capabilities and criteria. And then you have financial and procurement teams that are looking into, okay, how does this how much will we pay for it? Is this aligned with the value? How do we compare that to the market? It also needs to be comparable. In most cases, if it's a complete new category and there's anyway nothing where you could compare it to, then you are lucky. Maybe you can invent then new pricing models. But we are, in a certain extent, a replacement technology, right? So we did not invent e-commerce. We probably invented modern e-commerce, or e-commerce 2.0, at least from the technology. But e-commerce platforms already had been there, and they focused on the web shop. And we then became the successor and said, okay, now the requirements changed. Your business needs something different, and you jump to us. It's a little bit like there had been, before the cars, there had been horse carriages. Right, so cars replaced them, then next generation of cars, then now electric vehicles, and so on. So it's moving forward. And we're basically now the electric vehicle in commerce related to the automotive industry. So you need to figure out what's the pricing here that allows you to scale. And you're fully right. There's a lot of value that we unlock for our customers, which goes beyond the capability that you can sell something on a smartphone and so on, because we help them to enable new business models. We help them to become significantly faster and also do transformational changes within the organization, because it's shifting their thinking often from a waterfall, holistic mindset, inside the box. A lot of things hadn't been possible in the past, to a complete open model where suddenly much more is possible. Yet, unfortunately, this is hard to monetize, because what you would have to do, at least, and if you or somebody from the listeners has a great idea after listening to the podcast and said, hey, this is also what commercetools should do, this is how you can make even more money, please let us know, reach out to us. But the challenge is that these additional value drivers are very business specific. And this might be, if I look at our customers, this might be different for a BMW compared to a company like Sephora or Lululemon. They all might have different and specific advantages that they get on top of working with us. But what they all have in common and what they all look at is, okay, how much revenue are we making? So for us, it was always clear that the main value driver is the orders that are flowing through the platform. And what customers also want to have is consumption-based pricing, so that you have some alignment and especially on the risk side, both upside and downside. That, okay, this is what we plan to run as a business through your platform, and how much this is then aligned to a cost structure. And there have been different models in our industry out over the years. There had been GMV revenue share that some companies tried. We iterated also through the business models and pricing models that we could do. And at the end, we ended up at an order consumption-based pricing model, similar as you have it maybe with the hyperscalers, but on hyperscalers you consume compute and storage.
Right.
And with us, you consume the platform and orders. And this is something that's forecastable.
More closer to the output and the outcome for the customers.
And it helps the business teams to better plan cost, because the worst situation is that you come up with a pricing model that the customer CFO and procurement team does not understand, because then you're locked in another sales situation that is challenging.
Like an API usage volume in this case.
Yeah.
If it is that, right, how much API they are using, then the CFO wouldn't understand it, because they're then heavily dependent on forecasting it, which is very hard. Right?
Yeah. And yeah, this has for commercetools the downside that we have some customers that are maybe not high volume because either they have very expensive goods or other things where the fees might be lower, but they get a lot of additional business value out of the platform, which is then harder to monetize, because we have our pricing model and they use it less and have value somewhere else. But you ran into the problem that you can't scale a business really well if you make individual pricing around every customer. And when you start as a startup, I assume some of the listeners are in their early stages. So if you're, I don't know, below 5 million or even 10 million in ARR, right? So depending on what every product has a little or has different price points. But in our case, until I would say probably 10 million of ARR, there had been a lot of individual pricings out that had been tailored much more to the customer. And at the beginning, you can do this, and you start growing and you start learning and you start reflecting, and then you have some legacy customers that you need to adjust pricing on a renewal and so on. But at some point, when you then want to internationalize and when you want to scale and grow the org, you just need to standardize.
Beautiful. Yeah. And do you see complexity because of number of SKUs or number of channels through which they actually have to monetize? And do you bring that into equation, because your product then and implementation can get complex, or even how they actually derive value could be very different?
Yeah. So on our end, we built the platform by design to deal with any kind of data model or product catalog. But there is a difference, of course, because if somebody has 10 million SKUs in our platform and somebody has just, let's say, 20,000 SKUs in it, and I would say a typical fashion brand, somewhere around these 20,000 SKUs, if you think in, average sized larger company. And sometimes the 20,000 SKU company makes much more revenue, because it could be a global brand. Think about somebody like Nike and so on. Nike is not a customer, but I'm just picking them. Or let's take Lululemon, right? So I don't know their SKU number, but I would assume it's somewhere within that range. Let's say it's 50,000 to be safe. But we also have customers who have 20 million SKUs in there. And they do less revenue than a Lululemon. So therefore, the cost is lower. What they have in storage in our platform and the cost that we have to operate is way different here. What this means is that as a business, you have to make really carefully gross margin analysis across your customer tiers and buckets to really understand where are you making money and where are you losing money. And you will always have this one or two customers where you're not having a good gross margin. And this is okay if you know about it and if you accept it and if you model that in, because you also on the other end often get some customers where you have an amazing gross margin because they make with you a lot of revenue, but they don't have a comparably same infrastructure cost as similar sized customers. But this needs to be balanced out, and therefore it's pretty important to have a good KPI tracking of your operations to understand what's going on. And then this works out. We're not monetizing on, okay, what's then the complexity of their business model, because actually we want our customers to that the platform works in their environment so that they don't have to adapt. Ideally, they also make their businesses easier over time. But that's the big advantage, is that whatever you're selling on whatever kind of channel with whatever kind of business model works on our platform, and it's super easy and flexible to adapt.
Beautiful. I think what you're referring to, that the discipline that you're referring to, I think is even more applicable in today's world, because with AI, one of the things we are observing is every feature is becoming like a micro product, and you have to be very conscious of the winners and your fillers when it comes to which AI feature costs you more when customers are consuming it, and are you just filling up a plan with more and more AI features, or are you actually being very deliberate about including certain features for certain customers because it's going to cost you a lot more and it can erode the gross margin, right? I think it's an interesting dynamic. Not a lot of merchants, or rather businesses, are today very hyper aware of this today, because right now the focus is more on innovation and like shipping the coolest feature fast. But I think this discipline, I think, is fascinating and a very important lesson to internalize, especially as we think about the evolution of more and more of these AI first features.
Yep, absolutely.
That's a beautiful insight. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that in detail. Right, that was very, very helpful. So I want to focus a little bit on the winning platform shifts. Right. So one of your quotes is about the cloud plus mobile created this massive shift, and we believed it was enough to change the industry significantly. And commercetools was founded at the intersection of two major platform shifts, right? Cloud and mobile, right? What are some of the make or break strategic and product decisions you made back in the days that helped you ride those shifts? And how are you approaching the latest, especially way more disruptive platform shift coming with the AI?
Yeah. So when we build our teams, well, team sounds much bigger than it was back in the days. When we started and said, okay, who are the members of our core product team? What is the skill set that we are looking for? And how do we envision the first year of our product roadmap to be? The decision that we made, and that was probably counterintuitive to many, I would say the approach that often has been gone for, is that we said we're not launching domain specific. And what we meant with that is that we are not thinking about the e-commerce capabilities. So a platform or shopping system, you could say, has a couple of thousand features. It's like adding a product to a cart, calculating a price, calculating the tax, the various discount functionalities, how product catalogs can look to, and so on. We said we will not start with the depth of that. We will start with the fundamentals of how we believe modern enterprise software should look like, independently from the category. And why we did that is we said, okay, we knew commerce. We had the benefits of working with some of the best teams at that time and products for a decade already. So, and hundreds of customers. So we said, okay, we know all the features in and out. So even the specs we could write sleeping on what is functionality of a commerce platform, how it has to look like. But if we start with that, we had been afraid we fall back into old patterns, and that we get, oh yeah, in the past this worked, so we will do it like that again, but just with ABC on top. And this was something that we had been fearing the most, that we rebuild what was already there and just try to make it 10% better. Our approach was, let's make something that's 10x different than anything else that hasn't been out there from the architecture, to really solve the problem that the other platforms ran into as the market started to change. And our belief was that we want a software product where that is highly scalable. So, and highly scalable for us meant that can have millions of requests per minute, per customer, per tenant on it, where we will start slowly because we're a startup. So first year we just might have 10 or 20 customers, but over time we will have thousands of customers on it that will each have a customized data model operating down below, where we want to be able to have each of them millions of requests per minute, sometimes even all at the same time, sometimes at different times, and where we constantly make updates and changes that are not affecting any downtime to the system, and where everybody is on the latest version simultaneously. And that was the premise where we said, okay, and then later we said, hey, and we use it for e-commerce, but you could also have said, hey, this is for ERP, or this is for CRM, or this is for because that's then data model specifics and functionality on top. And that was the first core. And then we said, okay, and every functionality that we build first has to come out as a high-performing, secure, well-documented API. And then we build business layer, users, tooling, UIs on top of that. And that was the premise. And this decision is what is still carrying the success of the company today, and what is going to carry the success at least for the next decade. Because what this architecture did for us, and now is that whatever your business model is, whatever your sales channel is, it will work. So our focus was, how can we make something future-proof when the only constant is change? So we don't know how the future looks like. And we already said this in 2013 when we launched. There was smartphones out, there had been tablets out. Then voice came out, where we said, perfect, now you can order via voice. Then Audi, BMW, Porsche, and so on became customers and said, hey, we integrate you even directly into the cars. So then we had been on the website, on their apps, on their tablets, in the cars. Then we launched in-store, right? So now we are running also the POS. The store is in real-time connected. So whatever comes in, you can connect it because of that design of the architecture. So we built something that is future-proof. And I know we are going into the probably biggest change in consumer buying behavior that we're all so far in history that we have seen with AI, which is great. Another sales touch point, the AI, perfectly designed to interact with our APIs and everything around it, because that's the type of architecture that you would build for it, right? So if you start today from scratch and you would say, hey, you build a commerce platform, the first thing that you would start is, yeah, but I don't need a front end because the front end will be less relevant. It will be an AI agent that will interact with this. Oh yeah, so cool. Let's make it in the cloud and let's make all of these functionalities, the catalog, the cart, the order, an API, and then the agent can interact with this. So great. That's what we designed basically, because we said it's a commerce operating system in the cloud, everything is an API, and then whatever the touch point will be, whatever the business case will be, it's automatically working on it because of the technology and the underlying adaptability. But that was the fundamental change, and that we drove as a core decision. And then later on, I would say 9 months later, probably, if I remember correctly, after we had the design done and we had the platform architecture defined, then we said, okay, now we bring on all the commerce know-how and build all these capabilities on top. But we did not want to do it the other way around, because we knew that then we would run into a bad architecture and we would get into the problem that everybody else appeared to have, where they then started to, hey, yeah, we have this old legacy platform. How can we make this modern? How can we make this look headless? How can we make this look composable? How can we make this look blah, 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 without doing the real work on making it headless, on making it composable? Because for that, you don't start on top, right? So it's like with a car. If you said you want to have the most modern engine, the most modern technology and components in there, you cannot start with the painting. You basically need to start from scratch with the concept, and the painting is the last. And that was our benefit.
Beautiful to hear the maker's passion, right? The thought process behind every one of those. I think recently one of my colleagues was actually talking about this point of view that in an agentic world, a discoverable API is fundamental to the product,
Yep.
right? And pretty much all the decisions that you have made have revolved around that particular point of view.
Yeah,
And a
and
very
sometimes you need to
strong
be lucky,
opinion.
Krish, right? So it's not that in 2010 we thought about AI will be the future buyer. We just thought about that if smartphones and tablets are the beginning of the journey and there's more touch points to come, what is a technical design that you can pick that's also perfectly working with future applications that you don't know yet how they will look? And the answer was, okay, everything be well-documented API.
Beautiful. Right. As a team that actually obsesses about product APIs and especially documentation as a first-class citizen, it's amazing to hear this. This is awesome. So I want to shift the conversation towards from this to competition, right? In almost every customer instance, right? You are either competing against other products or competing against in-house systems, right?
Yep.
So unlike in the past, there is almost a sense that everyone is competing with everybody else today, right? And the foundation model players, whether it's a SaaS incumbents or FANG companies or AI native startups, are all aiming at overlapping parts of the enterprise workflows. And how are you seeing this play out in the e-commerce ecosystem?
Yeah, as you said, so if you're not having enough competitors, either your market is probably not big enough, or you're not seeing them, or I don't know, ignoring them. And our market always has been full of, if you define the category broad enough, shopping systems or commerce platforms, right? So even when we started, there had been 250-ish out there 15 years back. And I assume it's a little bit less these days, but there's, I would say, three categories of vendors out there. The one category is the legacy enterprise vendors that had been defining and creating the market from late 90s to the mid 2010s. And then they all got acquired, right? So the end of all of these businesses is that they got bought about a decade ago, some even longer. And they are still sitting around. Some of them are shrinking, some of them are stalling, some of them still try to be a little bit competitive. And that's the one category. And for us, this is one of the most important categories because more than 50% of the market revenue is still sitting there, right? So that's the legacy that you try to come from, right? So that's the old machines that you try to replace with new ones because they are not fulfilling the business needs anymore. And that's the one area. And never underestimate them because yes, their technology is outdated, but they have really strong sales organizations. They have strong marketing organizations. They have the C-level connections that you probably don't have. They know their board members of their customers better than you know them, and so on. So therefore, that's their advantage. It's not product. It's not innovation. They try to look good and modern, but when you look under the surface, you figure out, okay, they bought 25-year-old technology. So
yeah,
that's what it is.
Nobody asks a question like how many times you actually release features in your product.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the one, but that's why we exist, right? So if they wouldn't be there, the market wouldn't have been created, and our main purpose is actually to modernize them at the stack for the customers, to help customers to actually now become more innovative, more flexible, AI ready, and so on. The second category is the startups. And startups, I don't know, it's a hard definition, but everybody probably who started the last 10 years and tried something in our space. That market is interesting. It's constantly changing. There's often some interesting niche players. And except maybe one or two exceptions, I think they all suffered a little bit the upmarket of 2018, 19, 20 to our benefit, because they probably got too much money too early, and many founders went much more for funding rounds versus for creating product market fit and differentiation. And I believe that you need to differentiate if you want to own the market. At least other teams can have different ambitions, but my ambition would never have been to, hey, let's create a number two. Hey, there's a strong number one, and I want to create something similar, but just a number two. And because I don't believe that this really pays off and works out, you need to be really lucky in that case. I much more believe that you have something that the others don't have. Plus, customers need to value this differentiation. If it's only for you something, and we had that in the past, right? So I give examples as, yeah, we also launched an API platform, but it's just the difference is it's just a little bit differently documented, or it uses internally a different language. Yeah, but the customers don't care, right? So, and it's a Me Too product. With not real differentiation for the customer. And there we have seen many of these that didn't really scale. So there are some niche companies out there that stayed within the same size over the last 4 or 5 years. And now we are in a market that's, and in a macro environment that's much more challenging. It feels much more like 2003, 4, 5 after the dot-com bubble burst than it was 2011 to 2021. It requires different tactics and operations to then grow and survive in a market like that. And if you are on top of that not really differentiated and can't articulate on why you are 10x different than your competition, it's becoming hard. And then, so that's the second category. And maybe with AI, there could also be some interesting ideas and alternatives coming around. I believe we will see some interesting offers launching in the next year or so, which might be agentic commerce only focused platforms, for example, that said, okay, you can't even launch a web shop and these kind of things on us, but we are purely focused on enabling open AI with commerce capabilities or brands to participate there, which is something that we also do. But you might say, okay, we position just strongly in that corner, and that could give you a differentiating angle. We will see. And then the third category is platforms that expand markets, so that grew in the SMB space or in the mid-market space and had been successful over there and now try to adapt to the enterprise. So it's those three categories. Again, in the middle, in the startups, that there hasn't been so much momentum as we also have assumed initially to see.
Right.
But so therefore we have our legacy vendors, and it's the big names, right? So and everybody who's listening probably knows them, right? So it's companies like Salesforce and SAP on the one end, that's where we're replacing from, and where we have the incumbent competition. And then we have companies like Shopify, who are going from SMB to enterprise with a different approach and product that's also working well. And then it's us who are fully focused on the enterprise and give customers much more flexibility and capability. So everybody has a different kind of USP and kind of angle how this is playing off. And it's good to have strong competition. Big fan of that, having a few players, but that are competing strongly with you, because it just helps you being more focused and getting better.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think the way I have learned to now look at some of this competition is basically software is about opinions, right? And it's actually, when you look at different approaches to this competition of different competitors, it's the expression of their opinion that we are seeing in every way in which these companies are building. And there is room for different opinions and different expressions of those opinions that some people will like, some people will hate, right?
Yep.
but we have a point of view about how we build the companies, and it'll resonate with a particular type of customers and particular type of customers with certain needs. And it's beautiful to see how you are articulating it. And for the benefit of listeners, I want to expand on one thing I missed, which is when I mentioned the word mark, I did not say what that meant. Right? I'll just mention the expansion, right? The microservices based, API first, cloud native SaaS, and headless as an approach is the abbreviation mark for architecting, the approach to architecting solutions, right? And I think you expanded on that beautifully about how that has given the advantage to commerce tools. So related to that, right, the speed at which you have been able to release the Commerce MCP was fascinating to see. So it's not easy to rally around a mature at-scale company. If you were to record a brief snapshot from conception to launch, what would the core steps that you feel you got right with Commerce MCP?
Yeah, we experimented with AI, AI all the time, but specifically generated AI since the launch of ChatGPT from OpenAI. What is it now? More than 2 years back. And elaborated different models. And then when the MCP definition came out, I think it was it middle of last year? I forgot when Anthropic released it. Probably September.
Probably 6 months.
August. 6 months roughly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, 6 to 9 months.
It's still 24, right? When it came out.
Yeah.
We started to build a small prototype, right? So we have had a small AI experimentation team that always has been looking into cutting edge technology, and we ramped up a prototype internally to see first how fast can we do this. Not yet product release level for general availability, but how fast could we do this, and then how does this adapt and fit into our other AI strategies. And luckily, so if you have a set of, if you already have your APIs and it's already well documented, the MCP work is not that much, right? So I don't want to lower the effort and thought that our product team put into that. But it's much harder to build an MCP if you're running on a monolithic JEE or PHP stack, and then you're thinking about how could this look, because you have much more to do. The LLMs already had access or easy access to our APIs before, could also work with them. So the MCP fit much more like a additional wrapper and documentation around the APIs for the LLM to interoperate with our platform. So therefore the work was slow. The question that we had beginning of the year was, is this something that is getting fully adapted? So is the MCP really becoming the standard, or is it one standard? That was the first question that we had. And the second was, is it something that we are providing natively as a product, or are the customers on their own then launching MCP servers or MCP applications, and they run it? Because you could also have it on their side around our APIs. And what then had been the driver for quickly accelerating was that we worked with our big technology partners, namely GCP, so Google, and also Microsoft and AWS. We started to talk about agentic shopping and their shopping assistant ambitions, where they are basically then providing the tools for the consumer. So you will use, for example, Gemini or Microsoft Copilot and say there, hey, I'm interested in a specific product. Can you give me a recommendation? Can you help me buying that? and then the agent is interacting, not with your site, but directly with the brand or retailer to retrieve the product information, to place a cart, and then convert it into an order. And we started these conversations, and it's been, yeah, we all want to do this. And we said, okay, then we need to create a foundation. And this foundation should also not only work with our core partners, everybody should be able to either build their agents on top or interoperate with any type of agents. And it seemed to become the standard. That was around April-ish this year. And then this was an overnight decision. I think also our team was a little bit surprised by it. But Shiri, Hayo, Andrew, a few others from the team, Luciano. So core members of our team, we just had a half an hour chat and said, okay, this is what we launch. And then and this is what we need as a next step. Because the excuse otherwise would always been, yeah, but it's all API. They can work with this. And we wanted more. We wanted a native solution defining a standard. And as it already had been there, we already experimented and tested with this since 4 or 5 months. And we said, okay, the work effort actually isn't so much. We are almost there. We learned a lot over the last 4 years. We need to adapt more product teams to it, and then let's roll it out. That was how product innovation in real life looks like, as you asked.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So I want to shift to the personal scaling journey part.
Yeah.
Okay. So this relates to a particular quote that you made, right? Which is there is good news and bad news about building a $100 million revenue software company. The bad is it may take you 10 years. The good news is it's only 10 years. I love this note that someone had shared with you, right? So it's very true. And you had mentioned how as a team, you're always getting at the next thing to focus on. Did you end up doing like anything fun at the 100 million milestone? I'm looking for like the personal side to the story, like as a team, as an individual. How do you guys actually look at these milestones while looking at playing the long game?
Yeah. So first, credits to Carsten Thoma. He was the one who, long time ago, told me that learning, and I think he even got that from another entrepreneur and investor in one of his companies years back. But Carsten was the one who once gave me that advice on the journey. And on this 100 million one, yes, we did some fun things. I would say in hindsight, we didn't celebrate enough. We are probably, as a founding team, known internally not over celebrating these internal milestones. So we love when the team is celebrating it. I think we're just too much focused on what's next versus what happened present. We are learning on getting better with these, and we have a couple of milestones also on sizing coming up within the next 9 to 12 months, where we all said, okay, we will not. We need to get better at these. But so I think the for me biggest moment, also looking a little bit back and celebrating that, was when we highlighted this on Times Square in New York. Actually on the big billboard, and had been standing there and with members of the team and making photos, and then obviously so having some drinks and going out, but standing there and seeing this on a big screen on one of the most frequented places in the world and one of the most photographed ones, this has been actually a quite memorable event on it. Reality also is that 4 hours later, it's always, okay, what's next? And what do I have to do to get further?
On to the next problems. Beautiful. So last year, right, you moved to Chief Innovation role and hired Andrew Burton as commercetools CEO. So after a 14-year roller coaster ride, as you called it, can you tell us about the decision and what have you found the most exciting about your new role in the company's growth?
Yeah. So the decision, this change of role and evolvement, I would say, was a natural development. Maybe not personal on the specific role, but holistically on the company. When you grow a business from 3 people to over 600 in a decade in a sustainable way, right? So there's also some companies that scale up really quickly and then scale down gone fast. But if you're constantly growing, you need to redesign your company org structure regularly. Not less when you are bigger, but a company and its operating model looks much different when you are 10 people, when you're 50 people, when you're 100 people, or now we talk about people. It could also be revenue, right? So it might look in some cases different when you're 1 million, when you're 50 million, when you're 100 million. When you are one market versus when you are operating in multiple countries and multiple continents. For us, as it's enterprise software sales, so it's a sales intense business model. So it's not product-led growth. Yes, there's a lot of self-service components, but at the end, there's a very sophisticated sales process behind it. We have a huge partner ecosystem of hundreds of SIs, thousands of certified developers out there who are working on behalf of our customers within these SIs and partners to help customize the business. So there's a lot of things that you need to grow and scale because you don't start there. You probably also don't end there, but it's part of the journey. You start with, okay, now we need to adapt a partner model. Now we need to bring out partner enablement. In parallel, you need to level up your own sales enablement. You need to define your whole GTM motion. Then you need to adapt it when you internationalize it and so on. So there's a lot of curves. And what we always did is that we looked into the org of the company, so our org structure and operating model with the 18 to 24 months lens into the future. So we try to assume that how will our business look like from the size, type of customers, opportunities, challenges, and business operations in 24 months versus today. And then the question was always, okay, do we have the right org design and operating model? The answer then often is no. What's going to change and how do we adapt? And with that, we always knew that, okay, we have to develop people from within and we have to hire people from without because you can't grow from within to 3 to 600. The internal reproduction rate isn't high enough and fast enough. So you constantly are hiring and changing. And you need to define target designs. And you cannot define a target design, oh, where are we in 10 years? You probably can, but then you will never get there because you miss the times in between. So you need to figure, okay, where are we next year? Where are we the year later? And what's the steps in betweens? And what's the org target design and adjustments to your operating model? And the evolution there then, to get to your question, was at some point where I said, okay, we need to figure out a way how we can continue to operate at that scale. How do we, and the question was, okay, how do we get from 150, 200 million to 500 million on it?
Right.
What is the skill set that we need and who's doing what? And then the change of role and Andrew coming in was much more an outcome of this constant process and operations because so my role is mostly, I would say, oriented on the founder. On the founder side, it's okay, helping the teams to perform wherever they need me. Yes, I have a few focus areas. One focus area is product and innovation, but I'm not doing Sherry's or Hayo's job here. So our CPO and CTO, I'm actually trying to help them and support them where they would like it, and what's helping the company, but it's also okay. Winning key customers, supporting key customers, working with our key partners globally, helping Andrew and the team on operational excellence and so on. Sometimes a little bit more in the back, sometimes in the front. But the goal with the role was, how can we not replace my role here with somebody else, but how can we get more things done? So ideally, like cloning is also not what you want to do, because then you stay within the same skill set. But how can we closely work together? And Andrew brought in an amazing experience in operationally scaling and running large enterprise companies, also on the public market already. I have a strong experience in the ecommerce market and enterprise cloud and SaaS space. And we have a global business. We're in that way one of a few companies or younger companies that is both successful in the Americas and in Europe. And if you look at our revenue, it's roughly half-half, right? So we also have APAC as a business, but if we just look at our two biggest markets, Europe and Americas, it's same kind of size. And you cannot be simultaneously at both places. And yes, Andrew's traveling a lot, I'm traveling a lot. But if both of us would have to do it alone, you would literally live on a plane, and not being able to get a lot of things done. And having Andrew on the East Coast mostly, and me in Europe mostly, and then both of us spending, so him a third in Europe and me a third in the US, that's kind of a good balance.
There's that healthy overlap, right?
On and how also we can get this done. And different skill sets, different experiences, but similar thinking and ambition on what we want to achieve and how we operate, and having an egoless culture, and really focusing, building something here for the long term. That's what we had in common. I met Andrew already 3 years ago. So where we said, maybe at some point we find out a way where we could work together. And then last year it was, why don't you come on board? You take over the CEO title from me, because for me it was easier to say, I'm the founder, so I keep the founder title. So that's that, and you are the CEO, and that actually made it perfect. And it allowed me to now these days, though I'm still involved in many of the operating parts of the business, focus also a bit more on innovation and thinking ahead, versus spending 100% of my time in the day-to-day, right? So now I can decide, I spend 50% of my time in the day-to-day, but I can spend 50% on topics like AI, where's the market heading, spending a bit more time with our key customers, hearing and learning from their CEOs and their board, what's top of their mind, and how we can actually also help them what might matter for them in the future, and doing these kind of things.
Beautiful. It sounds like you're having a lot of fun walking the perimeter and helping make a lot more decisions with your instincts wherever there is a lack of data, right? And supporting the team to make those leap of faith decisions. Right?
Yeah,
that's good. Awesome. One last question. So I read that you played competitive volleyball for 15 years. Just so cool. So you have also talked about how you learned to enjoy the idea of crunch time in sports. What's your one piece of advice to founders that are facing crunch times in the age of AI?
Yeah. Don't give up. This is, I think, in sports, in business, in wherever, always the same. I would say the two biggest there are maybe 5 to 6 criteria that in hindsight helped any business to become successful. Like, you need to have the right product idea, you need to hire the right people, and a few others. But the two biggest, we could call them skills or things that need to happen is, first, you always need luck. Everybody needs luck, and luck can come in different shapes. It can come in timing, in some other coincidence, and so on. And the second most important one is resilience and persistency in not giving up. It's in sports when you and you just motivation enough will not, so that gets you far, but then you need to have the ability to also get things done when sometimes things are not working out or when it's harder, right? So, and when motivation doesn't kick in anymore, and you say, okay, you have the discipline on working it out, and then you can actually enjoy what you said, crunch time, when it really matters, because everybody can win when it's easy. It reminded me on 21. We saw so many funding rounds on a lot of companies with actually mediocre ideas and even not A-class teams out there, where you could bring up an argument that it's in an environment like that, getting a ticket to play is pretty easy. But winning and getting this done in a tougher environment when it's crunch time is much more challenging. But if you make your mind around that and you start to enjoying that work, the outcomes you will put much higher, right? So you will the rewards of it and how you will feel about it, that you really deserved to be there and get that win, makes a difference. And this main skill is just on don't quit. Continue if you're on the right track, on the right journey. Not every day is a win, and that's normal. That's for everybody. You just need to do it long enough, and then everybody has these times. Just continue.
Beautiful. Thank you. This was so much fun, and really appreciate you taking the time to share your learnings over the years and your point of view. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, Krish. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks so much, John. Thank you.